The first time the lake turned red, I thought it was a trick of the light. Moonrise had just crested over the ridge, silvery beams scattered across the calm water behind my house. For a moment, it was like every other night, quiet, peaceful, the woods breathing steady around me. Then the reflection shifted. The pale sheen of moonlight bled crimson, stretching outward in ripples like veins across the surface. I stood on my back porch, frozen, watching as the glow swelled. It wasn't a reflection of anything, no neon sign, no flare, no headlights. The light came from the water itself. The lake looked alive, a deep red pulse burning beneath. The strangest part? No one seemed to notice. The neighbors' houses stood dark, blinds drawn. No late-night fishermen parked their trucks along the shore. The whole town had gone silent, like they always did on these nights. It should have been beautiful, gorgeous even. Red moonlight, a liquid jewel. But it wasn't. It was wrong. It shook something deep in me, some instinct that screamed blood, not beauty, something primal that hissed, "Don't go near." I turned to head inside, but that's when I heard it. Not the water, not the trees, a voice. Faint, carried low across the still surface. It whispered my name.
I've lived beside Maple Fall Lake for as long as I can remember. My grandfather built this house after the war, a simple wooden thing with a screened porch and 2 bedrooms. Nothing special, but it sits just 50 yards from the shoreline, close enough that you can hear the frogs at night and the ice shifting in winter. As a child, I thought it was paradise. A backyard that stretched into water, no fences, no neighbors shouting over lawnmowers, just woods, water, and silence. The lake was always part of my life. Summer mornings, I'd swim out to the buoy before breakfast, my father timing me from the dock with an old stopwatch. Winters, we dragged sleds across its frozen skin, daring one another to cross patches where the ice groaned too loudly. Our family fished here, bathed here, laughed here. The lake wasn't scenery, it was a living thing, woven into every memory I hold. But with the affection came rules. My parents weren't superstitious people, but about the lake they were different. Never swim at night. Never look too long when the moon is bright. And if voices come across the water, don't listen. They told me it like bedtime prayers, repeated until the warnings lodged deep into my bones. I used to laugh about it with friends. Everyone in town knew the old lore. Campfire stories about drownings, unexplained lights, ghost fish glowing pink beneath the surface. Teenagers snuck beers at the shore on full moons, daring each other to wade in while shouting defiance into the dark. I went with them more than once. I followed the rules, but I never mocked them. Because even before I understood why, the lake unsettled me. At dusk, it looked darker than it should, shadows pooling deeper in its depths. On still nights, the water refused to reflect properly. Stars smudged or bent. Sometimes trees swayed on the banks, but their reflections stood strangely still.
There was life below the surface, too. Fish here didn't behave like fish in other lakes. Larger, more erratic. Their bellies pale, their mouths oddly wide. Every now and then when we fished, we caught things that never made it back into the bucket. Gray, mud-streaked creatures that squirmed with too many fins, their eyes looking more human than animal. We always hurled those back instantly, afraid to touch them longer than a second. As the years passed, the town adapted around it. Shutters closed on full moons, no night fishing, no swimming parties, shops shut earlier. People never said the truth out loud, but I learned to notice the quiet, the understanding. Nights when no dogs barked, no engines rumbled down the highway. Nights when the water loved to glow. We don't pretend the lake is haunted.
We don't pretend it's special. We just don't talk about it. But I do, because it's mine. I live closest now after inheriting grandfather's old house. The warnings died with him, left rattling around alone inside me, until a week ago, when the glow surfaced again, and this time it felt different, brighter, hungrier, like it wasn't just shining for anyone, like it was shining for me.
On the next full moon, the glow didn't just shimmer, it breathed. I stood on the back porch again, drawn by habit, but weighted by dread. The water was already red by the time I looked, pulsing waves of light, writhing like veins beneath the surface. It wasn't reflection. It wasn't moonlight. The glow came from the lake itself, radiating upward as if the depths burned. For the first time, I noticed the fish. A dozen silvery bellies dotted the waterline, drifting listlessly in the crimson sheen. Fish don't normally come up dead all at once, not with no storm or poison spill. Their bodies swelled quietly as the light kissed them, scales reflecting the glow in grotesque halos before they sank. And then the water moved. No breeze, no storm overhead, just still air and a lake that rippled without cause. Bands of red stretching outward as if something immense had shifted below. The surface dimpled, first here, then there, so many places at once, it was like invisible fingertips pressing up from beneath. Then came the sound.
It should have been frogs, crickets, owls, life. But that night, it was only voices, soft, delicate, murky, as though bubbling through fathoms of water. I strained to listen. Most words were lost in distortion, but one syllable repeated again and again, clearer with every wave. My name. I clamped a hand against my mouth, silencing the trembling breath that fought to escape. I scanned the tree line, empty. Neighbors' windows, black. Dogs, silent. But every nerve screamed I was not alone. The lake wanted me. I stumbled back inside, bolting the door and yanking curtains tight, but it didn't stop. Even with reminders of the house pressing close, bookshelves, lamps, photographs, I still felt the thrum under my feet. The house sat too near the shore. The lake's voice crawled through dirt, stone, timber, searching. I didn't sleep. Whenever my eyes closed, I saw drowned fish staring upward through waves of pulsing red. Whenever silence calmed, I swore I heard my name stretched, long and liquid, gurgled by something buried but awake. By morning, the glow was gone, calm, reflective, tranquil. Anyone else might have thought the fear was imagined, but I knew the rules my parents drilled into me weren't superstitions anymore. They'd been survival guides, and I had already broken one. I had listened.
It didn't stop when the sun came up. The red bled into my sleep, staining every dream with water, even unclear nights, when the lake looked ordinary and silver again. I'd close my eyes and see it pulsing in crimson. Sometimes I dreamt I stood barefoot at the dock, toes dipping into water that hissed at my skin. Other times, I dreamt I was already beneath, suspended in liquid fire, voices coaxing me deeper until my lungs burst, and I didn't care because breathing didn't matter anymore. That first week after the glow returned, I woke 3 separate times outside. The worst was Thursday. I remember laying in bed, The house perfectly still, clock ticking, refrigerator humming. My eyes closed only for a moment, or so it felt. Then, in a blink, I was cold, real cold. My soles brushed against dew. The night air slapped my arms. When I looked down, I was standing halfway between the porch and the shoreline. Barefoot, the water glowed red a few yards away, brighter than any fire. And I realized, sick to my bones, that I hadn't walked there awake. I'd been led. The footprints behind me proved it. Perfect prints in the grass, clear as ink stains, marching in a line from my bed to the lake, as though something invisible had guided every motion while my will slept.
I forced myself back inside, shivering until morning. Every lock got double-checked, pillows jammed against windows, chair wedged against the door. None of it mattered, because it wasn't just in dreams. During the day, I'd catch myself humming melodies I didn't know, humming until my throat dried. Sometimes I stared too long at reflections in water glasses, convinced the ripples quivered with faint red. Once, while staring into the bathroom mirror for only half a second, the pupils looking back weren't mine. They glowed faint crimson, tiny specks like trails of ember. Every instinct screamed, "Don't go back to the lake," but dread mixed with longing. I caught myself peeking between blinds when the moon rose, pulse hammering despite my terror. Curious, wanting. Neighbors still said nothing. They avoided eye contact. Curtains drawn, lights off by sundown. They had seen this before, too many times. I even stopped the postman to ask, pressing questions heavy in my throat. He only looked at me sharp and cold and said, "Close your drapes, don't listen past midnight." He didn't answer anything else. Whatever lived in the lake didn't lure the whole town. It had lured me. Somehow, the glow narrowed its gaze, settling into my marrow. I knew the next full moon was coming, rising like hunger, and with it, the pull would only deepen. I wasn't just watching anymore. I was being chosen. 2 days before the next full moon, I found the journal. It wasn't by accident. My grandfather had left this house to me when he died, but some of his belongings remained untouched. Locked trunks, old shelves warped by humidity. I avoided them for years, partly from grief, partly because old family relics tend to feel heavier than they should. But that morning, something gnawed at me. A whisper of instinct sent me rummaging through boxes in the attic until I uncovered a leather-bound notebook, scarred by time. My grandfather's scrawl filled every yellowing page. Mostly dull notes, fishing catches, weather reports, receipts. Then, about halfway through, the tone shifted. Words leaned harsher, writing jagged and obsessive. He wrote of the lake, the glow, the hunger. He had seen it too. When the moon is full, do not go near the water. The house is too close. The walls do not keep them out. We watch the surface, but it watches back. The more I read, the more his fear became obvious. Notes of neighbors gone missing, of livestock found bloated near the edge of the dock, of nights when red light leaked across his bed through shutter cracks. He lived with it all his life, but he had rules.
Written again and again, sometimes smeared as if his shaking pen carved them under duress. Never look at your reflection once the glow begins. Do not answer if voices call your name. Never let the water touch bare skin. If something answers when you speak, leave immediately. The final line on the page, underlined until the paper nearly tore. The lake chooses, and once it does, you cannot be chosen. I sat frozen, fingers cold despite summer air pressing through the attic vents. He had never spoken of this, never warned me in words. Instead, he left the journal, a last confession disguised as scribbles. Reading his panic, I felt my own rippling, like the lake's surface, because I had already broken one rule. I had listened when it called my name, and I wasn't sure I'd survive breaking the next.
The next full moon rose fat and heavy, spilling silver over the treetops. I told myself I'd stay inside. I repeated the rules in my head until they blurred into mantra. Curtains closed, lamps on, grandfather's journal pressed open beside me like a holy book. And yet, I couldn't resist. By midnight, my throat was dry, ears straining at every shift of silence beyond the walls. No frogs, no insect, just the steady thrum of air pressed down by the lake's glow. My feet carried me before my mind objected. Chair scraped, door unlatched, porch boards creaked under my weight. The glow greeted me instantly. This time the lake wasn't crimson. It was scarlet, richer and denser, like blood poured straight into the basin of the earth. The water was too bright, too alive, pulses of color spreading outward in perfect sync with the beat of my own heart. Every rule screamed at me. Don't go closer. Don't look directly. Don't let bare skin meet the lake. But something in the glow hooked me deeper than fear. I stepped closer until the dockwood groaned beneath me. The glow rippled around the posts. For the first time, the surface reflected clearly, and against every word of warning, I looked. At first, I saw myself, pale, wide-eyed, trembling. Then my reflection blinked. I hadn't.
I staggered back, pulse clenching, but the mirrored me only smiled. Slowly, broadly, a grin that stretched unnaturally wide until teeth looked more like bone than enamel. Its lips moved, though mine were pressed tight. I leaned closer, horrified, to catch the words forming silently in reverse. Come in. The water rippled without breeze. The dock tilted under invisible rhythm. The reflection swelled, pulling taller until it crouched just beneath the surface, reaching upward though my body never moved. Whispers lapped against the shore, dozens at once, different voices overlapping, each carrying my name in tones high and low. Some wept it, some growled, some sang. I collapsed backward onto the dock, breaking my gaze. The whispers cut instantly. The reflection stilled, smiling faintly at the edges, as though patient, waiting. Grandfather's journal fell from my coat pocket, pages fluttering. The same words etched again and again stared back up at me. Never look at your reflection once the glow begins. And I had. The silence that followed felt heavier than ever. Not protective silence anymore. The kind before lightning, before impact. From that night on, I knew I had invited something. The lake wasn't just calling me anymore. It had seen me. It had answered.
The reflection haunted me for days. I couldn't shake the grin, couldn't forget the movement of lips that weren't mine. I needed to understand what I was dealing with, so I turned to the one place that never lies, the local library. Small towns preserve their secrets poorly. Beneath the dustiest newspaper stacks and forgotten local history anthologies, you find what no one dares speak aloud. Maple Fall Lake appeared in records as far back as 1834. Fishermen wrote of odd fire shapes pulsing beneath its surface.
Early settlers documented nights when the moon's pull made water glow dark red. They didn't describe it as beautiful. They called it the bleeding basin. Then came the disappearances. Scattered reports, bundled by decades, of people who went walking by the shore and never returned. Many were children. Town council notes registered them as drownings, but bodies were rarely recovered. One clipping from 1922 chilled me. Local boy claims he saw his missing sister's reflection smiling up at him from lake surface. Authorities dismiss.
Later, firebrands formed cults around the water. One group called themselves the Ember Circle. They believed the lake was a gateway, a place where the moon peeled back the veil. Their rituals demanded blood offerings. Animals, sometimes people, whispered. The circle vanished in a single night in 1953. Police claimed they dissolved. No arrests, no trials, just silence. The modern town handled it differently, with avoidance. No swimming on full moons, no boats after dusk, and a kind of enforced hush around the subject. Parents repeated rules, but pretended they were just folk tales. Council reports redacted anything beyond strange lights. But the truth soaked through plain words. In one archive box, a typed memo. Do not engage the reflections. Do not linger at shoreline. If water addresses you, leave. The document bore no author, no department seal, just a line at the bottom. They select one per generation. When I read that, my stomach twisted because it confirmed something I'd already feared. The lake wasn't randomly glowing. It wasn't reaching for the whole town. It was choosing me.
The next full moon arrived with the sky so clear it seemed scrubbed. No haze, no clouds. Just silver light pouring over the ridge and striking the lake like a blade. By the time the moon reached its peak, the glow had already begun. But this time it wasn't crimson pulses dancing faintly. It was fire. The entire body of water burned, with a radiance so red it painted treetops scarlet. My house windows blood color across their panes like wounds. The glow was no longer beautiful or even surreal. It was violent. It clawed upward from beneath as though some furnace had ignited in the earth. And with the glow came the voices. Not faint anymore. Not whispers curling shy at the corners of my hearing. They rang loud, bold, countless, a cacophony bubbling up like oxygen bursts from unseen lungs miles deep. Hundreds of tones weaving like a fractured hymn. Men, women, children. Some wept my name, others sang it like praise, others howled it, dragging consonants until they echoed through marrow. Come, come, come. One word surged like the tide, again and again, in voices that were simultaneously inside the water and inside my skull. Figures surfaced.
At first, I thought they were branches caught in waves, but the branches extended upward, bent at the wrong angles, and turned into arms. Pale torsos rose slowly from the glow, skin leached white as salt. Black sockets yawned where eyes should have been, yet still I felt their gaze. Mouths opened impossibly wide, their insides bright red like lanterns lit from the inside. They didn't breathe. They didn't swim. They only stood, half borne up through the surface, ripples shrouding what rooted them below. The fish floated belly up again, dozens this time, spread around the congregation like offerings. I pressed myself against the porch post, nails biting my palms, but my legs trembled forward anyway. Breath hissed like steam through my nostrils.
The lake's glow painted my veins. My heartbeat synced with the ripples. I didn't want to move. God, I didn't. But everything in me lunged toward the call. When they spoke again, I almost wept because the voices had aligned. No cacophony now. One voice woven perfectly from hundreds, speaking my name clear and melodic. It was almost tender, and I wanted with a hunger that terrified me more than anything else to answer back. I don't remember slamming the door. Don't remember forcing myself onto hands and knees and crawling back into the living room. Only when I opened my eyes did I notice drag marks down the porch planks, faint grooves trailing toward the dirt where my heels had torn lines and resistance. If I hadn't broken away when I did, there would be no resisting now. The lake didn't just call anymore. The lake demanded.
The next full moon, I swore I would barricade myself inside. I nailed planks against the door, latched shutters, stuffed rags into keyholes and vents. I set my grandfather's journal open on the table, each page a desperate talisman. It didn't matter. When the glow pulsed through the walls, brighter than fire, my body betrayed me. My legs moved before thought, dragging me down the porch steps. My fingers clawed futilely at the rail, yet each tug only matched the rhythm of the chants rolling off the water. Come, come, come. The lake was alive with silhouettes that night. Dozens, no, hundreds. Pale bodies rising from the crimson surface up to their shoulders, each one glowing faintly within. Pulsating heat through skin like hot coals under parchment. Empty eye sockets locked onto me, mouths opening wide, pouring steam into the night, as if the lake itself exhaled through them. They sang my name. By the time I realized, my feet were already in the mud, the shoreline too near. Cold ripples licked around my toes, burning despite their chill. A smell of iron clotted thick in the air, metallic and sweet. My body screamed at me to flee, but my mind was chained to the song. The shapes in the water reached upward, arms stretching, elongating far beyond human proportions. Their fingers slid like eel tails, grasping for me. One caught my ankle, and the moment it touched, 1,000 visions ignited. A cathedral buried beneath waves, columns of bone, choirs of drowned faces chanting wordlessly, lungs collapsing yet somehow never empty. Red lanterns swayed along ceilings not built for anything human. At the heart, a throne carved from black stone, upon which slumped a figure too massive to hold shape, its head bent downward, faceless, yet all the voices belonged to it. The lake was not haunted. The lake was a mouth, a door, a promise. The hand yanked harder, dragging me chest deep before I even screamed. Salt red liquid poured into my mouth, thick and alive as though I were swallowing blood that still carried the memories of hearts that pumped it. My mind fractured. I saw my grandfather, younger, standing in waist-deep glow, journal clutched high. I saw other caretakers, generations back, each one chosen, each one clawing free only to be dragged again. Stay, the voices crooned, twisting my name into lullaby. Stay. Somewhere distant, survival kicked in. My boot caught against the stone on shore, leverage returning like lightning.
With every fraction of strength left in my bones, I heaved, tearing flesh at my ankle as the pale hand slipped away, retreating into waves with fury. I crawled across gravel, choking, coughing the lake from my lungs. From behind me, the choir of silhouettes screamed together, a harmony broken, wrathful, promising this wasn't over. I collapsed on the porch in a haze of smoke and blood. For a long time, I thought I had made it. I thought I had escaped. But when I sat up, shivering, drenched in glow, droplets slid from my skin back onto the wood, and they pulsed. The glow shone faint inside them. The lake was still inside me.
I've stopped pretending there's any safety left in this house. The lake proved that when it dragged me under. I still hear it every night when the wind quiets, a low thrum, like a heartbeat carried across the surface, a pulse that matches mine too precisely to be coincidence. The glow doesn't fade when the moon does anymore. I see it even on cloudy nights, faint veins of red threading through water when no light should be reaching it. Sometimes I catch it reflected in windows or in the glass of a picture frame. Not real reflections, not mine. My face twitching, smiling, mouthing words silently while I stand frozen, watching. I haven't slept properly since. At first because of fear, now because my dreams reek of salt and blood. Each night I see underwater stone carved with thousands of names stretching from miles into darkness. Some of them I recognize, missing neighbors, long-forgotten relatives. One night, written in glowing inscription across the black throne, I'd glimpsed in the depths I saw my own name, chiseled, permanent, waiting. The townsfolk won't talk about it. They avert their eyes when I ask, whispered curses when I insist. They've lived under the curse of the lake long enough to know silence is its own form of appeasement, but I can see it in them too. The way doors lock a little tighter on red nights, the dogs that all whine in unison around midnight, the way fishermen refuse to keep nets in overnight. They know. They always knew. Grandfather's rules are all I have. They circle in my head like a prayer I recite, even while half-conscious. Don't look at your reflection. Don't speak to the voices. Don't let the water touch bare skin. And if something answers, run. Trouble is, I've already broken every single one.
Now the glow spreads further each month. Last moon, I watched it spill from the lake into the river that feeds it, coloring the banks red for half a mile. If it reaches further, I don't want to imagine the glow threading across counties, towns, cities. I don't want to imagine how many voices it could claim when it finally decides to call more than just me. Which is why I'm writing this. Why I'm breaking the silence the rest of them cling to. Because maybe someone, somewhere far from here, might recognize the signs before it's too late. So hear me. Please, hear me. If you live near still water and it begins glowing red beneath the full moon, do not watch it, no matter how beautiful it looks. Do not let curiosity win. Do not listen when it whispers your name across the dark, because once it speaks to you, it will not stop. It'll wait. It'll choose. And when it chooses, you won't escape. I don't think I will survive the next moon. I don't think I'm meant to. But maybe you can, if you remember the rules. If you remember this warning. Don't look. Don't answer. Don't touch. Don't linger. And if you ever find yourself staring into a glowing reflection that smiles when you don't, run before it drags you under.